Michael Gove has been saying today, and I think this is mainly Philip Hammond's doing, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, he had a business summit yesterday, which the Prime Minister was at. A lot of the business people that came out of that summit certainly had the impression that there would be what they call an implementation period. Now, Michael Gove says that's to ensure access to migrant labour and economic stability would happen. But you can't surely be totally confident that Amber Rudd, as Home Secretary, will be able to have a new immigration system in place by then, because if she's delayed the consultation till October, how on earth would she have time to implement it?
Well, we voted to come out of the EU more than a year ago. There's best part of 2 years still to go. There's plenty of time to put our own immigration system in place. And I have no idea why Amber Rudd has delayed the consultation, but she'll have her own reasons. But the idea we can't have our own proper, fair immigration system in place by the end of March 2019, of course, is nonsense. Of course we can, and we will do. And what business is always saying is we want certainty. But you can't have certainty until the negotiations are over. And quite rightly, the negotiations are being done in secret. There hasn't been any leaks either from the EU or from our side. And the only two people really know what's going on is the Prime Minister and David Davis. And I do wonder why some of these other ministers are commenting on this when it's outside their departmental briefs. So maybe they should just let the Prime Minister and David Davis get on with it. And, of course, the Prime Minister, one thing she wanted to do as Home Secretary, of course, was reduce the overall numbers of people coming in the United Kingdom. And you certainly can't do that if you have free movement.
Peter, thank you very much. That's Peter Bone, the Conservative MP for Wellingborough. Adam Russell joins us, Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce. Adam, very good evening to you.
Hello, Iain.
Hi. Were you at this summit yesterday with the Chancellor and Prime Minister?
Well, I had a commitment to a number of business people in Dorset yesterday, Iain, a couple hundred business people. So I was actually with British businesses in Dorset yesterday. My president, however, was there at the summit yesterday afternoon.
And what reports have you had back from that summit, if you could share them with us? Because there seems to be a little bit of confusion over whether there is going to be some sort of implementation period, as Michael Gove puts it, or transitional arrangements to enable business to plan for this.
Well, I think the important thing out of yesterday was a clear desire to engage with the business community on the practicalities of getting this departure from the European Union right. What my businesses ask me all over the country, Iain, is who can I hire and when? Are my goods going to get stopped at borders? What standards do I have to comply with? These are practical questions, and it's a world away from the debate at Westminster. Getting answers to those practical questions is our priority in this process, and you might need time to get that done.
And are you getting those answers?
I think we need to work towards them, and what we've offered is the expertise and the know-how of business communities around the country, because we know what it's like to try to take goods across borders, for example, and what we would need in future in order to continue to do so. We also know what it's like in areas where local employers are really good at trying to recruit from the area but simply can't get people that they need and sometimes need to have immigrant labour come in as well. So we want a really good relationship between business and government to talk about these practicalities and get to the right solutions.
And is that relationship there at the moment, or is there some way to go?
I think the tempo has increased, very much so. I think we need to continue to work on it. And what I'd like to see over the next 18 months is a really close partnership on the practicalities. We hear so much about what Westminster politicians think should or shouldn't happen in this process. And actually, at the end of the day, this is about people, it's about business, and it's about normal trading relationships. And we need to ensure that some of the less sexy practicalities are dealt with.
Like what?
Well, you know, anything from being able to continue to trade, knowing who is regulating your particular business on a particular day. All of these things add cost for business. And what we need to avoid when we talk about things like a transition is businesses having to adjust once in March 2019 and then have to adjust again when a free trade deal is struck sometime thereafter. That would make UK businesses uncompetitive. The best thing to do would be to have them transition once, not twice.
Adam, thank you very much. That's Adam Russell, Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce. Do you think a transitional period, an implementation period, would generally be a good idea? Or do you just think, no, the curtain comes down on EU membership on the 19th of March 2019, and that's it? And if it hasn't all been sorted out by then, well, too bad. That's when we're leaving, and hang the consequences. Paul is in Brecon. Hello, Paul.
Hi. Look, I've been exporting most of my life, to over 30 countries around the world. and still do. My company does, that I retired from, that I founded. But so I'm used to business, international business, and I'm looking forward to Brexit. I'm looking forward to the anticipation to Brexit. Already, the lowering of the pound, the value of the pound has made exports far more competitive. In fact, more competitive even if we had the duty into Europe. But this delay does concern me, but I think it's cart before the horse. I can understand negotiation. As you're going through it, you say, well, we can't do that in time and that. Oh, yeah, it's beginning to crystallize that we do need a transition. I can understand that, and I can accept a transition in that event. But not sort of say, before you even begin to know what the issue is, it's going to be 2 years.
Well, what if the EU says to us, we will happily have a transition, we understand all the reasons for it, it can be a year, 2 years, whatever you like, but you can't negotiate your own trade deals until you're completely out. You won't be able to negotiate your own trade deals from the 29th of March 2019, because for me, that would be a red line. I'd say, thank you very much, no transitional arrangements, we want to negotiate our own trade deals.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I would say that's a total, very thick red line. Basically, what it's about, really, I mean, we're going to end up with a free trade deal. Anyone with any common sense knows we're going to end up with a free trade deal, just like many other countries. And that free trade deal shouldn't include paying any money in or anything like that. Just like Japan or Canada, anyone else will end up with a free trade deal. I don't think there's any way around that. And it's just how we get there, really. But what's going to be the case is this. Are the politicians on the political side of this going to get in the way of the commercial side? Because, I think Europe, the commercial side of Europe, the businesses are going to become very concerned themselves about a sharp transition. And what's in the way of this is this political dogma in the middle of the EU about, one state and all this. This is what they're about. They've also got another problem. They're losing 14% of their income. And according to Article 50, it's very clear, when you leave, there is no financial obligation. That's what it states in Article 50. And what they're trying to do is make up, not cut the cloth according to the new circumstances, but get us to pay for it. I mean, there's lots of things like that that are concerning. So when does German industry or the French one...
I think, Paul, you need to be a little bit careful about saying there's no obligations in Article 50. I think my colleague Mr. Farage has got into a little bit of trouble on that today, so we'll leave that one there. What I do know is that that we won't have any financial obligation to pay into EU coffers, but there may well be some sort of exit bill. Now, legally, according to the House of Commons European Affairs Select Committee, legally, we don't have any obligation for that, but that's just presumably their legal advisor's opinion. What I think we have to do, and we covered this on the programme yesterday, I do think if we have obligations, we have to meet them, but it's for the EU to tell us what they think those obligations are. But we won't have to pay into the coffers unless we decide to stay in one or two of the EU's institutions, but that's for then. Charles is in Bagshot. Hello, Charles.
Oh, hi. Is this about protecting the country or protecting the government of the day? Because I'm very concerned about the negotiators. They don't seem to be getting much done. And I feel that if you're a good negotiator, you're savvy, you've got your wits about you, we shouldn't need any transition period. I mean, yes, to me it's just like keep the thing plastered together long enough so we can sneak back into power. That's the sceptical side of me. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Brexit works out really well, because I love this country. I'm British. I want it to work out for us. But I am concerned about the losses, job losses, and so forth. And I'm just what I'm sceptical about is I just feel that this is just protecting them more than the country.
I'm not quite sure I follow you. How does what protect them?
Well, I mean, if there's a transition period, there's not going to be a sudden shock.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So, yeah.
Well, I think you have to be pragmatic. I mean, we all have our red lines, and I've just told you what one of mine would be, but you have to be pragmatic in any negotiation. There will always be concessions that you'd rather not make, and that will apply to us just as much as the EU. And a good negotiator, obviously, is going to get more concessions than they give away. And it remains to be seen how that will pan out. And obviously, the government's negotiating position was weakened by the election result. There's no doubt about that. I'm quite happy to admit that.
Yeah, but anyway, look, as I say, I am worried, I'm concerned, but I honestly do hope it works out, because I think everyone in the country should hope it works out, no matter how you feel.
Yeah.
because it's not going to be any good to anyone if we have an economic disaster.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think one other point on that, I think we have to make very clear that whatever side of this debate you're on, whether you are an arch Remainer and you still want us to stay in the EU, or whether you're somebody who voted Remain but actually you think, well, you know, it was a democratic decision, we've just got to get on with it, or whether you're an out-and-out leaver, we actually all love our country. We all want the best for our country. We just have maybe different views as to what that best means. But we should all respect each other's views. And I think there's a little bit of, there's a little bit too much anger entering this debate. And I understand exactly why it is. But we can at least remain civil. Charles, thank you very much for your call. With having some sort of transitional arrangement, particularly maybe on free trade, maybe particularly for the City of London and all sorts of other institutions maybe? Or do you just think this is an excuse to delay or thwart Brexit? Tony's in Croydon. Hello, Tony.
Hello there.
Hi, what would you like to say?
Definitely, regarding the transitional periods, it should be mandatory that don't expect everything to happen in the next 2 years. All the major decisions, all the trade deals, all the agreements with each individual country, even within Europe, to happen within the next 2 years. If we talk about immigration, for example, if we consider even for a second that British companies won't be able to have the same choice of employees, of immigrants, providing that the same labor is not available locally. We assume that they'll be able to pick and choose. Well, you also need to look at it from the point of view from the immigrants. If they still want to be here after 2 years, there's a lot of things that are going to happen in terms of the cost of living. How is that going to be? The currency fluctuation. There's a lot of families, a lot of people that send money back home. There could be double taxation. I come from Greece. Because I live here and I pay my taxes here, I don't have to pay taxes in Greece. If I'm outside the EU, I maybe have to be paying double tax. That's not going to make it, for a lot of people, that's not going to be financially viable to continue to stay in the country. If from what the Conservatives stated in their manifesto, that they can bring down net migration to under 100,000, I think the biggest worry is if they overachieve that and they actually goes into to a minus figure. They never said that they're going to reduce from 3.5 million to say 2 million or 1 million or even 3.2. They said they're going to reduce. Imagine if Britons living in the EU start coming back as well. That's just that's how I feel that the 2 years, it's a very short time of periods to conclude and agree everything. There's got to be some additional period after that.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Tony. Thank you very much. Matthew's at Heathrow. Hello, Matthew.
Oh, hi, Ian. Well, I think I'm a Remainer, accepted we're going to be leaving, but I think it's positive now that the Conservatives are saying that they are looking to carry on the free movement of people for maybe 2 years plus, what means we're going to have free trade as well during that period, and I'm sure that's why they're agreeing it, because they know.
Well, we don't know that though, do we? Because this is only something that they've said. This would have to be agreed by the EU.
I mean, the negotiations at the end of it is the whole picture. So they're doing it in stages. If we don't give something, I mean, we're not going to be able to take free trade through transition through.
But would you agree with me that there have to be some red lines here? And one of my red lines would be that we must be allowed to start negotiating formally new trade deals from the 29th of March 2019, and we cannot be stopped from doing that by the EU. So if there are transitional arrangements in terms of trade, they have to be on that basis as well, that we are free to enter new trade deals.
I think, we could start talking, but until we get the free trade deal with Europe, even Prime Minister of Australia said he wants to do a free trade deal with us, but not until he gets one with Europe first, and that's what I see.
No, he didn't. He didn't say. With respect, he didn't say that.
Oh, that's what I understood. That when he came over, what did he say?
No, they've already got people starting to have initial discussions. You can't have formal discussions until we actually leave. But he said he wanted to get a free trade deal with us as soon as possible. You can actually negotiate free trade deals with more than one country at a time.
Yeah, no. I mean, the most important is that free trade deal with Europe already. That is the trade we've got to and from Europe.
And it ought, as Liam Fox said yesterday, it ought to be fairly simple because we already have a free trade deal. We already have all the regulations in our law anyway, so there ought not to be too many barriers to doing that.
Well, there shouldn't be, but the problem we're going to face is once we get that free trade deal with Europe, there's going to be some clauses. Is we can't suddenly do a deal with America and bring stuff in the UK and then sell it to the rest of Europe.
Well, yes, but that's not, as you know, that's not how it works. Matthew, thank you very much for that.